Hey guys, welcome back for another video. And before we get started, I would like to wish everybody a happy holidays. Hope you guys have a wonderful time with the family, eat lots of food, have lots of fun, and be safe. So in this video, I want to talk about the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive and how they compare to each other. Now I have used both of these devices, so I have an idea of what they are. I'm not going to be talking about the specs of both the devices because by now we already know what they are. Um, so I want to focus more on how they feel and when we actually put them to use, and whether is one device more complicated than the other or not, even the installation process. I'm not gonna be saying whether I like more of the one device over the other. Both of them are great devices, but neither are perfect. Both of them have their strong end and weak ends. So we're gonna talk about them. So the first one that we're going to be focusing on is ergonomics. So the Oculus Rift we know is a little bit lighter than the Vives. So that does help in the long run, and especially you play for a long period of time. It doesn't put as much weight on your head and your neck. And the Oculus Rift also comes with the headphones. So which makes it a lot easier. You don't have to run around trying to find a pair of earbuds or anything like that. Trying to put another separate set of headphones put up to use, like the HTC Vives, because that can get a little bit too much in the way, and that does add extra weight to the head itself. So that's definitely a plus with the headphones on the Rift. And surprisingly, I was the very first time I used the headphone on the Rift, I was actually shocked to see how good they are. So that's definitely something to be take note of. Um, so when you actually put the headset on, of course the Rift that most people describe is like putting a cap on. So it's like wearing a hat. It's actually fits better. And if you wear it correctly, most of the pressure is actually most of the weight of the headset will be on top of your forehead and some in the back. You shouldn't really feel any pressure that's pressing up against your cheek. If you feeling that way, that means you might not have it on correctly. Um, the HTC Vive, on the other hand, it doesn't have any grip, any grabs to it on the back of the head like the Oculus Rift does. So most of the pressure will actually be pressing up against your face. So we can describe it like wearing a ski mask. So if you wear it for a long period of time, that can actually cause some um, um, soreness, basically. However, the Oculus Rift, and the Vive actually both you can wear glasses with them, but it's not as comfortable to wear on the Oculus Rift because I always have this fear if you wear glasses on the Oculus Rift, you can take the risk of scratching the lens, and they are very expensive to replace. So that's something to keep in mind. The HTC Vive, on the other hand, you can actually adjust them so the lens can be a little bit farther away and you can actually wear the glasses, and you're not, the risk of scratching it is not as high. So let's talk about the aesthetics. The aesthetics, of course, the Oculus Rift looks more polished, and the HTC Vive looks pretty much like the prototype. They haven't really made any changes, any big changes since the prototype to the consumer version. So definitely the aesthetic will go to the Oculus Rift on this one. Um, but this basically comes down to preference. Some people don't even care what they look like, as long as it works, right? Now SDE, which is the screen door effect. Both the devices have screen door effect. There's no way getting around it with the resolution that we have now. It's just that when I play on the Rift, it's not as noticeable. It's there if you look for it, and especially you start reading, look at the fine detail of things, you will notice it. In the HTC Vive, for some reason, when I use it, it's just a lot more noticeable to me, even though I'm not trying to look for them. So um, cables. So the HTC Vive in my opinion, is better cable management than the Rift. It doesn't really take up a bunch of your USB port like the Rift does, and it has a longer cable that go from your headset to the PC. So that way you don't need any extensions. You can actually walk around the whole room without any issues. The Rift, on the other hand, you do need extension, um, or else you're not gonna have that full room scale ability to play. You always feel like you being held back basically. So I definitely the HTC Vive is definitely better on the cable wise. Even the Lighthouse, yes, it does have extra cable and it does require the extra outplugs, but it doesn't require any other cables to run into your PC itself, which is I actually prefer that than the USB sensors that the Oculus Rift has. Graphic wise, um, the Oculus Rift definitely sounds, I mean, looks like it's sharper. The images on there is more clear to me. Is and the Vive on the other hand is neutral. It's not sharp. It's not bad. It's in that in between area. I just noticed the Rift is have the image is brighter in my opinion. And because it is brighter, it's sharper, the trade-off is you're gonna have God rays. That's the next category. You do notice the God rays more on the Oculus Rift versus the Vive. And you mainly only notice it when you are in a dark environment. And let's just say the the um, the screen that you're looking at is outer space, and you're looking at a bunch of stars. God ray became at that point it was a whole lot more noticeable than the Vive. So let's talk about the room tracking for room scale tracking for the headset. Both of them are equally good. I've done a test before with just we know the Vive tracking is good already, so I didn't. There's no point of doing a test for that. But I did the room scale tracking headset with just one sensor for the Oculus Rift, and the distance is actually very good. I think it can track all the way up to about 16 feet without any hiccups. So in this area, I think both of them are equally good. Now, the front camera, the Vive, this is the advantage to the Vive because it does allow you to see your environment without having to take your headset off. So that's really good. The Rift, on that hand, does not have one. So maybe sometime in the future, maybe the next generation, the Oculus might think about adding the front camera to the headset itself. Light bleeds basically has to do with the nose gap and how much light that comes in your headset. The Rift does have a nose gap, and that can get annoying to some people. And also at the same time, it can be useful because it does not have a camera like the HTC Vive. So sometimes I actually use that nose gap to see things and to grab things. But if you put on like a VR cover that basically has a strip of cloth or anything like that go over that nose gap area, it usually just block the lights out and you won't even notice it at all. But HTC Vive on the other hand, you don't have any nose gap or anything like that. Is you pretty much cover all the way around. So that's a plus on that side. So let's go ahead and talk about the controllers. So recently, the Oculus Touch controllers just got released, and I've been playing with them for a while. So, um, basically, I want to tell you how my experience with them so far. So, ergonomic wise, they are definitely lighter, smaller, and they fit better in your hands. Um, and it's the opposite for the HTC controllers. Now, because they are smaller and fit better in your hand, they they have to go, right has to be on the right, left has to be on the left. The HTC controller itself, you can switch them and not an issue. Room scale tracking on the controllers, we don't have any problems. Actually, the amount of problem issues that you run in with the HTC Vive controllers are not as common, I would say. You do run into it every now and then, mainly because of occlusion or just once in the blue moon, you will have some issues. Neither controllers are perfect. But the Oculus Touch, I do notice more tracking issues, mainly either due to the software itself that that Oculus has not ironed out yet, or it's the distance itself, the tracking distance from the sensors to the controller, and not as um, the range is not as long as the HTC Vive. So because of but they use a different type of tracking mechanism. The Vive uses the Lighthouse base station, which I think is slightly better than the Oculus Rift sensors overall. So usability, yes, the Oculus Touch is better in this category. It has capacitive sensors for the finger to track your gesture, so it does give you that immersion where you actually notice that you don't your finger can move, which adds a new level of immersions, which the HTC Vive controllers uh, do not have. So locomotion, and then this I just put this locomotion area down. I mean, there's tons of way we can actually move in the game, but the Oculus Touch uses the joystick, and the Vive controllers use trackpads. I personally prefer the joystick. It just moves better to me. It just feel more natural. The trackpad, I'm not as big on it, but this basically comes down to preference. So my preference is with the joystick. Software itself, well, let's talk about software a little bit later. Talk about gamepad. Um, the HTC Vive does not have any gamepads come along with it. The Oculus Rift have the Xbox One controller and the other small remote. So playing seated game is useful, I would say, with the Xbox One controller. And if you play seated game, which on the Vive, which you can, but it's just sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of feel a little bit awkward with the wands. So software itself, both of them, both Steam and Oculus Home have a lot of softwares, but in my opinion, on Steam we have a bunch of junk, basically. I mean, the good games out there, yes, there are definitely good games out there, but the majority of them are actually very bad. And it's well, actually a waste of your money if you actually even pay for them. Um, Oculus Home, on the other hand, slightly has a better advantage on this one. They do have more polished game. They don't just allow anybody to upload their games onto their Oculus Home. Steam, on the other hand, pretty much lets anybody um, put games on there, whether it's good or bad or just junk. Um, so Oculus Home, because they are a little bit more selective, their gaming library, although not as much as the Steam VR, but they're more quality. Let's put it that way. So, and one last thing I want to show you guys is the how Oculus Home, which is where you can, Oculus Store basically, where you can buy games or software or program or apps versus Steam VR. And one thing I want to let you guys know that if you are looking to buy a game and try it out and see you like it or not, and if you don't like it, you want a refund. At the moment, you cannot do that with the Oculus Store. There's no refund option, so you gotta be. I'll make sure you read all the reviews thoroughly before you buy the game. On Steam VR, you can refund. You can ask for a refund if you don't like the game. If there's of course there's limitation and restriction. You have to find that out for yourself first. Um, but if you don't like it, you can actually have an option to return the games on Steam VR. So that's definitely something good. Okay, guys, so I just pull up Steam VR and Oculus Store, and neither side are perfect actually. I would like to see some changes if the from the developers of this. The problem with both of these is we don't have good categories. I mean, it takes forever to actually find a. Let's just say I don't know what game I want, but I know a type of game that I want. Like let's say I want to play a horror game. Now, if you want to play a horror game by scrolling down all these, there's ton of pages. I mean, it's gonna take forever to find a horror game that you actually like. Because by the time you find something that looks like a horror game, you actually have to click on it and read into it and see what they are, if it's even a horror game in the first place. So, and the only categories that are available right now on Steam VR is you can either, look for Oculus Rift, HTC compatible games, multiplayer, room scale, blah blah blah, all this stuff you can read for yourself. I'd like to see more those categories to be broken down more, whether it's adventure, action, FPS, horror, um, stuff like that. So it makes it easy for the consumer actually go on there to look for a specific type of game that they want. And unfortunately, at the moment, if you click on one thing, 100 or at like a couple hundred things pops up. Like let's say I want to play. Let's just click on Oculus Rift. You click on Oculus Rift, look at all this stuff, and look at how many pages. 21 pages, and it has no. It doesn't tell you what kind of game um it is until you actually click on it. So it does takes a little bit of time to actually sort through all the games. Um, on the Oculus Home itself, it's not any better. I mean, the categories they have are features, winter sale, um, daily deals, all these categories. Like, look at this games. Like, really, you know, there's a lot of different type of games. So maybe it'd be nice if they actually break that category down further. So they can keep this category the way they have now. They just need to add more to it and to allow us to sort through better and quicker. So that's just my thing. So neither Steam or Oculus Home actually uh, have this down yet, so they definitely need some work on it in the future. All right, guys. I hopefully this video is not too long, and again, I hope you all of you enjoy your holidays and be safe.